We often see those, really hopeful images, don't we? Communities getting clean water, kids laughing around a new tap. And that story of progress, it's so important. But today, we're going deep into, well, the tougher side. What happens when that clean water just disappears? Or, maybe worse, it's there, but you can't use it. So our mission in this deep dive is really to explore why communities lose that access. How do things like environmental disasters and, frankly, human actions make the crisis worse? And maybe most importantly, what concrete steps can actually be taken? We're digging into the insights from the sources you've shared with us, trying to get a really clear picture. Okay, so let's unpack this. We're talking about a truly global challenge here. And the numbers, when you look at the sources, they're pretty startling. The WHO and UNICEF, their joint report from July 2023, it says 2.2 billion people still lack safely managed drinking water right at home. Billion. And then, on top of that, another 703 million people don't even have basic drinking water services. Those figures are just huge. What's the core issue there?
Well, what's really striking about those numbers, I think, is that it's not just about, say, a lack of pipes or infrastructure, which is what maybe comes to mind first. The deeper problem, the one the sources really highlight, is that the water sources we rely on, they're actually disappearing. And they're getting contaminated faster, really, than we can find or clean up new ones. So it's a crisis of both quantity and quality. That mix really sets the stage for how complex this all is.
Quantity and quality. That distinction is key, isn't it? Okay, so let's dive into those reasons. There are quite a few, starting with the environment. Because when we talk climate change, maybe we think higher temperatures, melting ice caps, but the sources you shared point to something maybe more insidious. It's like a massive amplifier for water crises. It's fundamentally changing the whole water cycle. We see places facing drought, like remember Cape Town, South Africa, 2018, that day zero threat where taps nearly shut off. The BBC covered how incredibly close they came. Or Chennai in India, June 2019, reservoirs just completely dry. They had to bring in water on emergency trains. It's extreme.
And it's not just surface water, not just about less rain falling, is it? That really underlines how climate change hits our sort of natural safety nets. Take groundwater, for instance. NASA satellite data, this was published in Water Resources Research. It shows 21 of the world's 37, major underground aquifers. They're being depleted faster than nature can possibly refill them.
21 out of 37. Wow.
Yeah. And look at India, their 2023 groundwater assessment. It shows huge regions are already critical, or what they call overexploited. It really connects to that bigger picture. It's not just less rain, it's our backup, our safety net, literally disappearing beneath our feet.
It's shocking to think the water could be right there, but totally unusable. So what did the sources say about the main culprits for contamination, especially from industrial activities?
Right, and that's where examples like the Samarco Dam collapse in Brazil really hit home, November 2015. That wasn't just the tragic loss of 19 lives. It dumped massive amounts of mining waste, toxic sludge into the Dos River, contaminated hundreds of kilometers. And then, incredibly, something similar happened just 4 years later in Brumadinho.
Unbelievable.
And it's not only mining. The textile industry, for example, gets called out. There was a 2022 report, Changing Markets Foundation, linking big fashion brands to really severe water pollution in places like Bangladesh, Indonesia, toxic dyes, chemicals. It makes you think, doesn't it? This isn't just happening far away.
No, you're absolutely right. It raises that tough question. How close can this contamination get? And the sources give us a really stark example, sadly, with Flint, Michigan. Back in 2014, right? A decision made essentially to save money by switching the water source. It led to widespread lead poisoning, thousands exposed, including kids, and the public trust just completely eroded. It shows how policy choices can have these immediate, devastating effects on water quality.
Absolutely. And it's not always pollution or, bad policy choices. Those are huge. Sometimes it's just our infrastructure is old, it's crumbling. And this is a challenge even in really developed nations. Think about Jackson, Mississippi, just recently, August 2022. Decades of basically underinvestment, and the whole system failed. Over 150,000 residents without reliable water. It got so bad the EPA, the Department of Justice, they had to step in just to get things stable.
That's a really powerful example of neglect, isn't it? And it connects to this idea I saw in the sources, non-revenue water. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, it's basically water that's treated, put into the system, but it never reaches the customer. It's lost through leaks in old pipes, broken mains. Globally, the amount is just staggering. So even while people might be facing rationing, huge amounts of perfectly good water are just leaking away into the ground. It's a silent drain.
A silent drain, that's a good way to put it. And moving beyond infrastructure and pollution, the sources also paint a grim picture of water in conflict zones.
Yeah, it's sobering, isn't it? Water becomes both a casualty and, tragically, sometimes even a weapon. Look at Yemen, the war there, ongoing since 2015. It's just decimated water and sanitation systems, and that directly fueled the world's largest cholera outbreak. UNICEF's 2023 assessment, over 2.5 million suspected cases. It's a humanitarian catastrophe, fundamentally linked to water access or lack thereof.
It's just unimaginable. And we saw something horrific more recently, didn't we? The Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine, June 6, 2023. Destroyed, caused catastrophic flooding, yes, but it also collapsed this huge reservoir. Millions relied on it for drinking water. It's just weaponizing a basic human need.
It really highlights how many layers there are to this crisis. It's not just one thing. And even outside of direct conflict, think about agriculture. It's a massive water user, right? About 70% of global fresh water goes to farming, and often it's used incredibly inefficiently.
Yeah, and the Colorado River is such a clear example of that overuse, isn't it? Supplies water to, what, 40 million people across 7 U.S. states, Mexico. But it's been over-allocated for decades. Now add in the drought, the warming, they're facing emergency cuts. The demand has just completely outstripped the natural supply.
And it's not just the amount of water agriculture uses, it's also the pollution. Runoff from fields full of fertilizers, pesticides. It flows into rivers and lakes, and that fuels these massive algae blooms. They can make the water completely undrinkable. Remember Toledo, Ohio, August 2014? Nearly 500,000 people couldn't drink their tap water because Lake Erie had toxic levels of, well, toxins produced by these algal blooms.
So the very thing meant to feed us ends up poisoning the water.
Wow, exactly. It's a difficult cycle.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? About our own daily actions, things we might not even connect to water scarcity, like the clothes we wear.
Yeah, synthetic fabrics shed microplastics when we wash them. Tiny little plastic fibers.
And improperly disposed medicines, or just casual littering. It all adds up, right?
It really does. And what's kind of remarkable is how widespread it is. That World Health Organization report from 2019 found microplastics in 83% of tap water samples they tested worldwide.
83%.
83%. We're literally drinking tiny bits of plastic. And scientists are still trying to figure out the long-term health effects. It connects our everyday habits, washing clothes, taking medicine, straight to this global contamination issue.
Okay, so we've laid out a lot of the challenges. It's pretty stark. What does this all mean for the future if things just continue like this? The World Bank projection you flagged, water scarcity could slash GDP by up to 6% in some regions by 2050. That's huge economically.
It is. And looking even further ahead, the World Resources Institute warns that by 2040, without major policy shifts, a lot of countries could face what they call extremely high water stress. And the consequences go way beyond just economics. We're talking more waterborne diseases. We're talking about agriculture collapsing in some areas, industry suffering, which could lead to mass migration, people becoming essentially climate refugees, fleeing water-scarce regions.
And potential conflicts.
And potentially more conflict over what little water is left. Critically, too, some of that groundwater depletion, it could become irreversible. Once those aquifers are compacted, they might never hold the same amount of water again. It's a future where clean water could become a real luxury, only for the few.
That sounds incredibly bleak. But there's good news, too, right? The sources do emphasize that. We actually know what works. The solutions are out there.
Yeah.
But they need real action, right? At every level. So if we talk government, policy, obviously, massive investment is needed. The American Society of Civil Engineers, their estimate for the U.S. alone is what, $1 trillion over 25 years for water infrastructure? That's a huge number.
It is a huge number, but it's not just about the money itself, it's how it's used and the rules that go with it. Governments really need to enforce strict rules on industrial discharge, no more dumping untreated waste. They need to upgrade treatment plants so they can actually remove these newer contaminants like PFAS, those forever chemicals everyone's talking about.
Right.
And they need transparent water management, setting clear, sustainable limits on how much water can be taken from rivers and aquifers. It's about accountability, long-term planning.
Okay, and what about technology? That seems like a really hopeful area.
Yeah.
Especially things like desalination, but powered by renewables now. That seems to be changing the game.
It really is. For years, the energy cost of desalination was a major hurdle. But now, with cheaper solar and wind power, it's becoming much more viable. You mentioned Israel. They're getting over 55% of their domestic water from desalination now. It shows it can be done at scale.
And it's not just making new water, right? What about reusing it?
Exactly. That's another huge area. Singapore's New Water program is probably the most advanced example. They treat wastewater to such a high standard it's actually cleaner than the water in their reservoirs, and it meets 40% of the country's needs. It's about shifting our mindset, thinking of water as a resource you can reuse, a circular resource, not just something you use once and throw away.
And within the pipes we already have, smart systems, how do they help?
Yeah, that's about using sensors, data. You can detect leaks in real time, often before they become major breaks. You can optimize how water flows through the network to reduce pressure and losses. The sources suggest this could cut water waste by maybe 30%.
30%, just from being smarter about it.
Pretty significant, yeah.
Okay, agriculture, the big one. 70% of water use. What's the key there? Efficiency.
Absolutely. Efficiency is everything in farming. Simple shifts, well, relatively simple, like moving from flood irrigation to drip irrigation or precision sprinklers. These methods deliver water directly to the plant roots. The sources say this can cut water use by 30, even 50%, often while maintaining or even improving crop yields.
30 to 50%, that's a massive potential savings.
It really is, and we see it working. Israel's farms, for example, use about half the water they did back in the 1960s, yet they produce more food. It just shows what's possible with smarter techniques and real investment in innovation.
And what about industry? What's their role, their responsibility?
Well, fundamentally, industries need to move towards closed-loop systems where they reuse water internally as much as possible. They absolutely have to treat their wastewater properly before discharging it, no exceptions. And they need to invest in water-efficient technologies throughout their processes.
And we, as consumers, we have a role too, right? Like putting pressure on companies.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Nestlé example, selling off their North American bottled water operations in 2021, partly due to public pressure. That shows it can work.
It definitely can. Consumer voices matter. And then there's what each of us can do in our own homes, our own lives. These things might seem small, but when millions of people do them, it adds up.
Like fixing leaks.
Definitely. Start there, that dripping faucet. The sources say it can waste over 3,000 gallons a year, just dripping.
Wow.
So fix leaks. Install water-efficient shower heads, toilets, washing machines.
And thinking about our diet, that connection was surprising.
Yeah, the water footprint of food is huge, especially meat. Producing 1 pound of beef takes roughly 1,800 gallons of water. Compare that to, say, a pound of vegetables, maybe 39 gallons.
1,800 versus 39, that's a massive difference.
It is. So even just reducing meat consumption slightly can save a lot of water. Also, think about disposal. Never pour chemicals, old paints, solvents down the drain. Never flush old medications. Those end up in the water system.
Right. Take them to proper disposal sites.
Exactly. And maybe use one of those laundry filters that catches microfibers from synthetic clothes. And, support businesses that are genuinely trying to be water sustainable. And critically, vote for leaders at all levels who actually prioritize environmental protection and water resource management. Our choices add up.
Looking back at everything we've discussed, drawing on all these sources, what's really striking is how fragile water is. We think of it as infinite, always there, but it's deeply finite, it's vulnerable. Every gallon wasted, every chemical dumped, every aquifer pumped dry, it pushes us closer to that future you described, where clean water is a luxury, not a right.
Yeah, and the bottom line, I think, connecting it all is that we have the tools. The technology is there, the knowledge is there, the solutions exist. What we seem to lack sometimes is the collective will. The determination to actually implement them everywhere, consistently. Securing the future of clean water isn't going to be some kind of miracle. It's a plan. It needs a plan. And that plan needs all of us. Individual actions, yes, but also demanding big systemic changes. The choice is really ours, isn't it? But the clock is definitely ticking.
So after digging into all this, a final thought for you listening. What part of this deep dive really made you stop and think about your own relationship with water? And maybe what single change feels most urgent, either for your community or just for yourself?